Many dangers, toils, and snares I have already come. 'Tis grace that brought me safe thus far, and grace will lead me home. One of the most recognizable hymns of all time is Amazing Grace. Whether Christian or not, you've heard this sung, whether in movies or in mockery. But the gravity of its words can't be fully known unless you know the testimony of the dangers, toils, and snares that brought these lyrics about. John Newton was born on July 24th, 1725. His mother died at 6, and he had this to say of his father. I am persuaded that he loved me, but he seemed not willing that I should know it. I was with him in a state of fear and bondage. His sternness broke my spirit. Left to his own devices, Newton became a debauched sailor himself. He was pressed into naval service against his will at the age of 18, living a destitute existence as part of the slave trade. But Newton was not much more than a slave himself. He was treated terribly and later wrote that the African slaves would often smuggle food to him. It was in this dark hour that God began to close in on Newton, a man who wasn't looking for him at all. On March 21st, 1748, Newton, then 22 years old, awoke to a violent storm. His room began to flood with seawater, and he rushed towards the deck. On his way, the captain stopped him and sent him to get a knife. The man who took his place on the deck was instantly washed overboard. Newton was assigned to the pumps in an effort to keep the boat from sinking. From 3 a.m. until midnight the next day, he worked the pumps and took shifts at the helm. While on the pumps, he uttered a desperate prayer. If this will not do, the Lord have mercy on us. It was his first petition to God in many years. The boat limped for safe dock in Ireland, and while doing so, Newton read a Bible he had found. In his heart, he felt like an irreconcilable sinner, but Jesus' words gave him hope. The date would be one he would never forget. The experience marked a huge turning point for Newton. However, his life did not instantly change. In fact, he was the captain of a slave trading ship for several years after the event, and it wasn't until later in life that he would strongly oppose the slave trade. Newton wrote of his experience then. I acknowledge the Lord's mercy in pardoning what was past, but depending chiefly on my own resolution to do better for the time to come. I cannot consider myself to have been a believer in the full sense of the word until a considerable time afterwards. He eventually married, and in 1764 he felt called to become a pastor. Over the next 42 years, he tirelessly shepherded 2 churches. It was during this time that he started a prayer service with William Cooper and started writing hymns collaboratively and on his own. And with totaling 300 hymns to his name, he averaged 1 a week. He was instrumental in encouraging his friend and ally William Wilberforce to stay in British Parliament and fight for the abolition of slavery. Wilberforce was the major force in bringing about the end of the slave trade in Britain. Encouraged by Newton, Wilberforce fought for the abolition of the slave trade for almost 46 years, facing mountains of opposition. But through it all, he faced this conflict with the same spirit that led Newton, and in doing so made even his opponents admire and respect him. John Newton's life was not a sprint, but a marathon, filled with hurdles, strife, and adversity. But all of this only served to embolden Newton's faith and to cause him to rely more and more on the grace he had first received in the middle of a violent storm at sea, so that one day he could write the words to a hymn that would touch the lives of countless people.